He talks a good game. He talks a good game. On the outside, he talks a good game.
Hello, welcome to On Me Ed's Son. Hope you're all well. Thanks for joining this Friday night. What a glorious Friday night it is. Yeah, the sun is shining all over the UK today, and the roads are dry, and everybody's got a smile on their face. Yeah, no seasonally affected disorder going on here, that's for sure. Well, I am the anti to that, because I actually love the winter, and I love the rain, and I love everything. So I'm a very happy bunny today. Listen, enough of that. Let's just talk about football. Let's just talk about football managers. West Ham manager, I'm going to be talking a little bit about that. But any other football managers who are kind of, their heads are on the chopping block a little bit, or almost there, or the jury's still out on them, that's for sure. There's other sporting stuff going on this weekend. Obviously, there's big news going on in the boxing world. Some huge news just came out today as well. So if anybody wants to talk about that, I'm more than happy to talk about that. Big boxing event going on tomorrow night. Chris Eubank Jr. going against Conor Benn. The second fight, the first fight in April. That'll be live on DAZN. You go check it out there. I was thinking about doing a live show tomorrow night, live watch along for that, but I think I might just pull back on that. I just might enjoy the evening and just enjoy the boxing and just come back afterwards with a reaction show to it. But I thought I would, just let you know what potentially could be going on. I say there's lots of big news in the boxing world. If you've got any thoughts, just note them down in the live chat. I'll be keeping an eye on that, and also in the live comments later on. So I'm going to be talking now really predominantly about football and football managers. There are a few managers out there that are let's say they're under a bit of pressure. Obviously, the bottom three, of course. Sean Dyche with Nottingham Forest. West Ham, obviously Nuno, still under pressure. Wolverhampton Wanderers, obviously they just sacked their manager, just appointed Rob Edwards as well. So he's going to be under immense pressure straight away. Scotty Parker at Burnley. Mr. Farker at Leeds United. Many Leeds United fans already calling for his head, questioning what's going on. And Eddie Howe. Under pressure as well. Everton manager David Moyes, got that result, but he was starting to come under a little bit of pressure, especially from Everton fans. And Marcus Silva, Fulham, of course, this week coming under a bit of increase in pressure. So that it's never a dull moment of being a manager, and when you're a manager of a huge club, like Man United, Amarin, he's always been under huge pressure, and many have been calling for his head for a long, long time. But it's only in the recent weeks that he's been getting a run of results. Okay, 2 last draws, but many Man United fans have been totally unhappy with him. By contrast to that, many other Man United fans have been, kind of okay with him in terms of they said, well, it's not really him being the problem. It's United as a whole, the Glazers' ownership, Ineos coming in as well. Of course, the whole structure of the club. And there's lots of parallels between the way Man United are being run in terms of just purely dysfunctional sense, but it's a different type of dysfunction to the way West Ham have been run, obviously for 15 years. But needless to say, regardless of which way the club has run, the managers are always coming under pressure. So, for example, West Ham United, who I support, of course, as you know if you watch this channel, Nuno Espirito Santo, he's come in 6 games under his belt. His first one was the draw against Everton away. Lost away to Arsenal very convincingly. Didn't put up any fight really whatsoever in terms of an attacking sense. Feebly lost against Brentford and Leeds with an atrocious team selection, and then kind of redeemed himself somewhat. In fact, redeemed himself a lot in many fans' eyes with the 2 successive wins against Newcastle and Burnley, both at home. But I believe that the jury should still be out. I'm not saying it is out on Nuno, but I say it should still be out because it's only 6 games into the season. I made a video earlier on talking about the running of games until Christmas or to the new year. How many points realistically West Ham can look for in that? And we're looking for a handful of points, really. If we make it to 20 points as West Ham by the end of the year, we would have done very well. If he keeps us in the league, Nuno, I think he would have done very, very well. But also, we got to judge him on the performances that he's able to deliver, the team selections, the tactics, in-game tactics, game-to-game tactics against other teams. And this is all the pressure, this is all the judgment that a manager is always going to face, right, from us as fans. There's always been the argument for fans, against fans, saying that, well, they don't, they've never played the game, they've never managed a game, they never coached a same game, certainly at that level. And I sometimes have to hit myself and pinch myself to say, yeah, of course. These footballers, these coaches, these managers are the elite of the elite. You're playing in potentially the richest league in the world, the most exciting league in the world, the most competitive league in the world, the best quality league in the world. And so these players are the elite of the elite. And if you're playing for the really top sides around Europe or around the world, but certainly around Europe, you really are at the highest of the high. You really are at that level. And it's no surprise that these players are getting paid what they're getting paid because of market forces. I don't agree with it. I don't think that anybody should be getting paid that much for kicking a ball around, But at the same time, it is what it is in terms of market forces, okay? So we always judge these players in comparison to other players on the same level. So we'll always say that there are always levels to this game, okay? But in terms of levels of what they're playing at, that's how we're able to critique it, because we have eyes. We can see what's happening. And we can see that a player of an elite level is outsmarting another player. And this goes the same for managers as well and coaches. You can see a particular manager who's able to outthink and outplan and outmaneuver another manager or another head coach in any given situation or in a given situation or in a given game. It doesn't make them bad at what they do. It doesn't make, but at that level, at that particular time, they just didn't meet the level or match the level of what was around them. So that's where we see temporarily, they're at the levels. And we see that in management all the time. Let's face it, management is a bit of a hard task. It's a thankless task in many ways. When you look at the managers that have been and gone, there are only a handful of managers really that have lasted the test of time. Certainly in the modern era of football. Back in the 60s and 50s, 60s, who did we have? Sir Alf Ramsey, of course. Just name, Matt Busby, Sir Matt Busby, Bill Shankly. Then into the 70s, Bob Paisley, I should say. Lots of managers just went on and on and on. In the modern era, Wenger, Ferguson, that just stood for a club and stayed at a club a long period of time. Probably in this day and age, probably Pep Guardiola is that manager who stayed at a club for a relatively long period of time, brought them immense success. But as soon as that drops off, they start to feel a bit of pressure. Feel a bit of pressure from the media in terms of critique. What's going on? Is there a crisis? From some of the game management, some of the player selections, something's not quite working. It's always been said that you put an elite manager in a championship side or a League One side. Let's see how they do. The elite managers are used to working with elite players as well. That's part of the problem. But they're always going to be under pressure no matter what level they're at. So you take the likes of Marco Silva, who've been doing really, really well under Fulham. In fact, many West Ham fans wanted Marco Silva at West Ham to take over from when Potter was being sacked. In fact, before then. But now he's under pressure for a poor run of games. They're sitting just 1 point above West Ham. They're sitting in 15th. West Ham sitting in 18th. But just 1 point separates them. In fact, there's only 3 points that separates Everton in 13th and West Ham in 18th. 3 points. That's all it is. 3 points. So if all the other teams above West Ham lose in the next fixture, West Ham beat Bournemouth, West Ham jump up to 13th position. Well, probably 14th position. Something like that. No, that's not right. What am I talking about? I'm talking absolute nonsense. Misread it. Newcastle United. So, yeah. So, if West Ham win all the games and up to Newcastle they lose all their games, West Ham would be in 14th position above Newcastle United. So, 1 or 2 games here and there can change your fortunes. And we've already seen that with Nuno, in that a couple of games have changed his fortunes, have changed the outlook on the manager, changed the outlook on the club, not the club, but on the the players themselves, the way they've applied themselves, the way that Nuno has stuck to his task. So there's been a lot of movement only within a couple of games. But you could easily see that Nuno at West Ham could easily get under pressure again straight away if we lose against Bournemouth, if we lose against Liverpool, lose against Man United. There's Man City, there's Villa in there, Brighton in there, Fulham in there, Brighton again. If we lose those games or get hardly any points, he's going to be under an immense pressure. Now, we've already seen it with Nottingham Forest already. In fact, let's say years ago, we already saw it with Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace, De Boer, manager, got sacked after 3 games because they just saw it just wasn't working. Completely the wrong thing. And over the years, these kinds of changes of managers have happened more and more. They're not given the time because it just can't be they can't afford to be given the time anymore. The drop down from the Premier League into the Championship, especially if you don't rebound straight away, is immense. It is huge. And also to retain your prize assets in terms of your best players is very hard when you drop down to the Championship, because the best players want to play for the best teams. They want to play in the Premier League and they want to have a shot of playing in Europe. That's not going to happen. They're not going to stay if you get relegated. Now, even today, I mean, this is another aspect of football management, dealing with the players themselves, dealing with agents, dealing with media, dealing with media stories. Nuno, bringing it back to West Ham again, Nuno Espirito Santo had to field questions on Paqueta the other day, had to field questions, who else was it? Was it Bowen he had to field questions about? He also had to field questions about... there was another player, I can't remember exactly who it was, but he was like saying, well, look, I'm just here to, just focus on the team, but they know the stories are around. We know that Paqueta is saying that, he wanted to move out, and there's obviously this FA investigation, scuppered his plans to Man City, and now he's kind of talking about go back to Brazil and everything. Juve, he's only been at the club 5 minutes. He's already talking about potentially as West Ham being a stepping stone because he wants ultimately to go to a really big club. And on one hand, you don't blame these players for wanting to move on to bigger clubs. At the same time, they're doing it for their own reasons. But at the same time, you would imagine they should have been given some media training from the club to say, whatever you do, don't ever say it in this context. Don't ever say these things in this way. In private, you can have your own things. You can say whatever you want to say. But because what it's going to do is going to make you look like a fool in front of the fans. The fans will turn on you or potentially turn on you. And I wouldn't be surprised, some fans, that they'll boo Paqueta at the next game against Liverpool. They'll boo Juve at the next game against Bournemouth. It's this kind of thing because of the things that are said. Exactly the same that managers can be booed for their tactics, for their stubbornness, for their reluctance to change in given situations, for their initial team selections. Look, the pitchforks were out for Nuno on that Brentford game, his team selections. But it was pitchforks and lit torches for the Leeds game when he did exactly the same thing after the disaster with Brentford. So you've got other managers. I was watching True Geordie the other day. He was talking about Eddie Howe at Newcastle United and the way fans are him, but other fans as well are either with him or against him in terms of calling out the team, calling out the run of form the way it is, but also starting to call out Eddie Howe and say, look, you've got to take the blame as well. And I think that's the pragmatist would always have that, wouldn't they? The pragmatist would say, look, you've got to take these results, and they are your benchmark. You've got to take those results. These are your benchmark. These are the ones that you're really going to be judged on. The performances, yes, and to a certain degree, and certainly on a long enough timeline, the performances will be. But it's results at the end of the day. It's a results-based business. Fans will forgive a manager if they're seen to be doing the right thing or trying to do the right thing, right? The same with players. We treat everybody the same. If we can see that you're trying, or you're trying to do things, you're trying to play for the team, you're trying to play for the badge, you're trying to put it all out on the line there. Just like there's a lot of fans who have a lot of love for Souček, for example, for West Ham. That every team has a couple of players, 2-3 players, which the fans really love. But there's also a realization and understanding that players like Souček are not the players that we need in certain positions. They're maybe not the players that can start games. But when they come on, as proven in the last couple of games, they do a job, right? They do a job. And that's the kind of job that we need. So managers are always going to be under pressure to do the right thing, and they'll be judged just like players will be judged in terms of their performance or what we perceive their performance to be. But we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. We don't know what kind of conversations are going on between the coach, the head coach, the manager, the coaches, the players, all the things they're having to deal with, the media intrusion, all the commitments with the club, all the politics of the club. And you take again, coming back to West Ham, you take a Nuno Espirito Santo who's coming to a club like West Ham in a bit of a sorry state at the moment, and having to field questions about the fans and the fan protests and things like that. And looking at it from his point of view, you say, look, all I want to do is just try and do the best for the team and get them playing and giving the fans something to cheer about, essentially. So in the last couple of games, he's kind of done it. But could easily switch on its head again. It could easily go the other way. If we get a run of poor results again, or players dip in their performance, or he can't improve the performances of some other players, then also they're going to be on his case. They're also going to be on the players as well. It just stands to reason. It just stands to reason that's going to happen. We're still in this international break. Of course, we've got another week or so before the game against Bournemouth. Some international fixtures last few days. Obviously, England won, Italy won, Norway won. Just looking tonight, Germany have beaten Luxembourg. Republic of Ireland beat Portugal 2-0, wasn't it? Ronaldo getting sent off there. Croatia beating Faroe Islands 3-1. Looking good there. Did anybody see the Czech Republic result last night? Was it last night? I think it was last night. In a friendly against San Marino. Let me just check. Yes, San Marino. And it's Karabech who's no, sorry, Souček scored. Souček, if you're a West Ham fan, like I am, Souček scored. Woohoo! Right? But they beat San Marino, the little tiny principality San Marino in Italy, right? Bunch of part-timers, almost like Sunday leaguers, right? They beat them 1-0. So Souček has been under increasing pressure from Czech fans for not only his poor performances, but also the Czech side. We've got a Czech side who at home beat San Marino only 1-0, where you should be stuffing them 5-6-0 at minimum, right? Maybe more. So these San Marino players are, low. Some of them are just lower league Italian league players at best. Very few are, make it into the higher leagues. Some of them are still, just part-timers, They're not even National League full-timers, in comparison. So we're looking, so you got to think, okay, you've got a player who's gone away as international duty. This is your manager now. And he's in a team that are underperforming. He gets the goal. So he's, scoring for fun, right? Souček scoring for fun. Can only he do himself a little world of good. But the pressure that he's under as a player and the criticism, he'll bring that back with him. Then the manager, the club manager, has to deal with that. So international duty, national break is a bit of a nightmare for national club managers, as we know. I would imagine that they absolutely hate it. Having their players going away, risking injury. We know, look, every player that West Ham has ever had that's gone away for international duty, more often than not, either comes back with an injury or comes back with a dip of form. Paqueta's gone off with Brazil. I think they've only got one game. They're playing in Tuesday, I think, in a friendly. And you kind of wondering, why has he gone away? I think he's gone away anyway. But why has he gone away? For playing one game, but he has to fly all the way, God knows wherever he's flying to, back to Brazil, and to fly him back. Luckily, he's not playing in the Bournemouth game. He's suspended, of course. But at the same time, that's still the problem, right? That's still a problem. So we're expecting these players to go away. As a manager, you have to manage that. You have to, because the fans still want to have a level of performance. But if the player's just not fit enough or able enough to do it and maintain that high level elite standard to match other elite players, then it will be easy to see in a performance, in a dip in performance, and then you're going to probably lose the game. And that's the problem. And you see this all the time with lesser squads. When they have a great season, they make it into Europe. Then the following season, they're fighting Europe and also the league position. And either one of them has to give. Either the league form suffers, which it usually does, in the goal for Olympic glory, right? This is exactly what happened with West Ham. Yeah, poor seasons whilst in Europe. Just got worse and worse in the domestic, but the European form, was pretty good. In fact, it was obviously great because they won the Conference League. But either side of that, either year of that, either season of that, the Europa League, one semi-final, one quarter-final. So not bad. In fact, bloody brilliant actually. But in terms of managing that, as a manager, I would imagine it's a very tough ask. The problem with managers is that they would have an ultra belief in their own ability to be able to turn a team around, to improve a team, to make them play in their own image. You think, oh yeah, I can turn this team around. But they don't know until they go there how the players are going to react and what they're going to find. I was convinced when Nuno Espirito Santo came to West Ham, he must have thought, what the hell have I found here? What's going on here? This is no good. I don't think I can forgive him for those two games, Brentford and Leeds, the way he sort of tinkered and completely put out such a weird team to lose. And we're all convinced he was trying to get himself the sack because it was just such a bad choice. And he did it twice. inverted fullbacks and Souček and Irving in midfield. I mean, you got to ask yourself this question: if Nuno is such a great manager, and you wonder what's going on in the manager's mind, right? And I learned something new today, that he loves to clear his head. He can only clear his mind, if he goes for a ride on a horse. Would you believe? So there we go. I learned something new today. So take that away with you. But if he goes horse riding, then he can clear his head. But you got to, I would question. Now, we were all talking about James Ward-Prowse, right? Under Potter, him and Souček, and really not performing in midfield at all. And we knew that when Nuno Espirito Santo came to the club, because James Ward-Prowse was at Nottingham Forest under him, under loan, he never got a game, or we got a couple of games and never got a game afterwards. It might be a bit tough for him, but bloody hell, Nuno has frozen him out completely, totally blanked him. Now, I noticed on training footage today from Rush Green that James Ward-Prowse is definitely training with the first team. He's definitely there, but obviously just not being selected, right? So you imagine that he's going to be gone in January, or hoping to get out and get a game of football somewhere. But my question is this: why is Nuno picking Souček and Irving in midfield for 2 games straight, where you've got to, even though we don't want James Ward-Prowse in there, objectively you've got to think James Ward-Prowse is better than Irving, a much higher standard than Irving. So why are you starting with Irving instead of James Ward-Prowse? What, just to change it up? Or is it that you just really don't like James Ward-Prowse, but you're going to put somebody in worse just to prove a point? But effectively, you're playing exactly the same midfield that's been failed. In fact, you're playing a worse midfield that had failed all season. It just didn't make any sense. So this is when you question managers and their decision making. You say, well, hold on a minute. Objectively, looking this, you think that you can do a great job here. You think you can turn this around. But the decisions that you're making are just not giving us any confidence here whatsoever. Then, obviously, you can have a couple of, you change it up, as he did, put Potts and Fernandes in there, enabling Paqueta to play a little bit more open and free. Didn't perform, or the first game he performed a lot better, second game not so well. But then we say, okay, well, he's learning. Oh, this is Nuno. Yeah, he's learned from his mistakes. Well, the thing is, when you learn from mistakes, you should learn from your first mistake, not from your second mistake. So again, for me, the jury's still out on Nuno in terms of his decision making. But it was a good move to put Potts and Fernandes there. But he's got to hope that they can maintain that level. They can maintain that level of performance. But now Paqueta is out for Bournemouth. So what does Nuno... This is where we're going to start to see what kind of a manager Nuno Espirito Santo is, what players he's going to select, what formation he picks to compensate for the absence of Paqueta in a team, in a squad of players that really has got a lot of holes in it, that has a lot of room for improvement. So the question is, any manager should be judged on not what their purchases are, what players they get in, the transfers, because they say you should always judge managers on the success of their transfers. I disagree. I think you judge a manager based upon his ability to manage a group of players that he just gets, that is inherited. Can he improve them? Can he make them more tactically aware? Can he make them play in a style that is quintessentially his own? So for the first 4 games under Nuno, for example, there was a lot of questions about whether he was that kind of guy, whether he was that kind of manager. Could he take this ragtag of players, There's these bunch of misfits and get them playing. And the jury probably was not even out. Lots of people, myself included, saying, look, he's not good enough. He's just not right. This is Nuno. I'll start calling him Nessie, right? The good football is as elusive as a Loch Ness monster. Nessie it's just not good enough. But he comes back with a change in fortunes at Newcastle and Burnley. The Burnley performance wasn't as good, but it was enough. Both games scored 3 goals, 6 points, 6 goals, 6 points, 2 wins. But both games went down to an early goal and had to claw our way back. That shows a lot of fighting spirit. That shows that he's able to instill something. And he's got them playing better. But for how long? And, when we start to see the chinks in the armour, the cracks in the paint, when we start having a few injuries or dips in performance, what about when January does come and he is able to get a couple of players in? Are they truly his players, or are they the club's players? Even, myself included, virtually every fan is talking for a director of football, but you still have the same issue. A director of football might want to employ managers or have the overall vision of the club and talk about player recruitment, but that's got to involve the manager. You got to buy players that suit the manager that you have. If you don't like the manager because of the style of play, and you've got all these players that are great, but they just don't suit the manager, then obviously you got to ask yourself the question as director of football. You say, well, do I want to take this club in a different direction? Do we want to play a different style of football, a more attacking, more open style of football? Do we want to bring all these great players that we can get in? And do we need to change the manager because of it? Or the problem with a club like West Ham, you got lots of different players, disjointed, a bunch of misfits from different manager picks. So this new manager has to prove their worth in being able to control what he has, work with what he's got, make them marginally better. So that gives confidence in the players, but also gives confidence in the fans, but also confidence in the club, right? In him to be able to lead the club to better days. And that's what you want from all your managers. But let's be under no illusion. Very few managers are able just to take a club from here and just keep on going, climb, keep on steady progression. Very, very few have been able to do that, certainly for the long period. And we're talking about, up until a couple of years ago, we were talking about managers being in position for 3 years, and then that was about it. Whereas before it was 5, 6, 7 years, 10 years. No, you need to invest in the future. Even new managers now, you hear fans saying, "Oh no, we've got to give the time. We've got to give him 3 or 4 seasons." Now it's not even that. Now we've got to say no, just one transfer window. Now it's not even that. It's got to be, whereas before it was like 10 games into the season, then you decide. Now it's 6 games. 6 games, you say 6 straight losses, that's it, that's the manager's gone. It doesn't necessarily have to be 6 straight losses. It could be 6 in different performances with a mixture of losses and draws and maybe an isolated win. Then all of a sudden, you're out on your ear. Potter, for example, right? He was out on his ear, he's gone. Because the indifference of the players, the lethargy of the players, the way they totally disengage with the fans. Something had to happen. And you kind of seen that with Marco Silva. You saw it with Ange Postecoglou at Nottingham Forest. Obviously, Nuno left Nottingham Forest, falling out with their manager. Their owner. Sean Dyche had gone into Nottingham Forest with high hopes. Indifferent start already, but he got a result the last game. So that's going to take a bit of pressure off him as well. And not only pressure from above, but also pressure from the fans as well, right? But then take the likes of Wolves. Okay, new manager, as I said. Rob Edwards, he's come in. I personally think it's a mistake him going there. I think he should have stayed at Middlesbrough, second in Championship. Finish the job that you're on. I think it's managers can be labelled many things, ambitious, so on and so forth. But also they're mercenary as well, or many of them are mercenary. Just like players, we bemoan players whose heads get turned by, bigger clubs, so on and so forth. Well, managers are just as able to do that, especially these days. So you kind of question, as a fan, you question where the loyalty is these days. If your players are, waiting or using your club as a stepping stone to go on to something else, and as soon as something changes, they want to go. If a manager is doing exactly the same, where does that leave you as the fan? As we know, and I keep on repeating this, the fans are the life force of a club. They're the spirit. They're the past, the present, and the future. So regardless of what you might feel as for your manager, in my case, in Espirito Santo, I like the way he talks. Some of the things that he says in press conferences I like. And some of the footage that I've seen of him, I like. He seems a very sincere guy, seems to have a lot of integrity, seems to have a clear focus of what he wants to do. But there's passion there, and I can see that. And he seems to be a bit of a gentleman, but I think he's, you don't want to mess with him. You don't want to mess with him either. He'll give it to you straight. And I don't think he'll take any prisoners. And I like that. And I like that in a manager. So whilst I like him, I still reserve judgment on him because of all these other variables. Because it could easily go against him. He could easily have a poor run of form. It's just the way it is. And as I say, players can want to put a transfer request in. They want to leave. Managers can do the same. Look, Nuno did it with Nottingham Forest, right? Manchester United manager Amorim, for the longest time, many of their fans, I speak to them, many of their fans were saying, look, he's looking for a way out here. The things that he's doing, the results that we're getting. Look, Liverpool fans were turning on Arne Slot a couple of weeks ago, saying that's it, we've got to change him, it's no good because they're going through those losses. And other fans and commentators going, what's going on here? This is ridiculous. But you can kind of understand it. It's that if you're having such a poor run of form and the manager's not changing, or things are not changing, what's going on? Pep Guardiola, he had exactly the same last season. And you kind of think, hold on, this is Pep Guardiola. What are you moaning about? What are you doing? But it probably is definitely the case that fans, modern era fans, have a lot less patience. In fact, the whole game in the Premier League is a lot less patient in terms of wanting results, wanting performances, wanting managers to excel. You'll get a club like Arsenal, for example, and they won't win anything, or they haven't won anything since Arteta's first season, right, where he won the FA Cup. I can't remember if he won the Charity Shield that year, but he won the FA Cup, right? I don't think he won the Charity Shield or Community Shield. But then there are fans saying, well, look, we need to go with somebody else already. This was last season, let's say. We need to go with somebody else. You just, can't keep on finishing second or third or whatever. We need to do a lot better. And you kind of think, well, hold on. You're at the top of the table. You're just finishing second. What else do you want? Okay, apart from silverware, what else do you want? It kind of makes a mock. Other fans look at that and going, crikey, what else do you want? I'm sure other fans will look at West Ham and go, from the outside, because they don't know the inner workings of what goes on. And they say, what do you want? You just want a European, Conference League title. What is it you want? Why did you want Moyes out? because we wanted Moyes out because we could see that the quality of football and the performances in the league especially just weren't working. His style of football just wasn't working. The way he was managing the team just wasn't working. And it's hard for people on the outside to see that, but as a fan of your club, you will always see it. You know the inner workings of what goes on in terms of a fan perspective. Other fans don't know your club, don't know what goes on. And I don't talk about other clubs in that regard. You know, I will always defer to the fans of that club. I would say, look, the fans of that club have told me this. This is what I've just been in Manchester for a few days, speaking to a couple of Man United fans when I was up there. You know, and the general feeling is, you know, Xerxes, for example, they need him now. They need him because Sesko's gone. It's, you know, who knows what will happen in January in terms of Xerxes, if he'll go out on loan from Man United, if West Ham will even be interested then. But for the here and now, they've got a problem up front in terms of strikers, injuries, Sesko. The feeling is that Mainu should stay at should stay at Man United, not go out on loan. Not go out on loan to anybody. He needs to just stay at Man United. Now, who knows what would transpire there? But, you know, within the next month or so, we're going to see a lot of jockeying for position for players and for managers and seeing where they're at. But make no mistake about it, all your managers, every single manager, is probably not even realistically thinking about the whole season anymore. They're probably just thinking about the next few games. And in some cases, they're probably just thinking game to game. As I say, it's a precarious position. I don't envy football managers at all. They're not protected like they once were. They're not even respected like they once were, even by the players. A lot of the players see them as just temporary, see them as tourists, see them as interlopers, as it were. They don't really see them as, especially players that have been in a club for a few years. All of a sudden they say, "Oh, what? A new manager's coming." You know, you got to think like the Forest players. They had Nuno at the start of the season. They had Ange for a few weeks. Now they got Sean Dyche. It's got to be a very unsettling period for them. But the same for managers as well. It's an unsettling time for them. But at the same time, managers get paid handsomely well, and this is why you should never take a job as a manager unless you've got a fantastic contract. You signed a fantastic contract with great, you know, clauses. If you get sacked, you get a payoff. Now that is the other big criticism of fans of managers, of course, is that they're mercenary. Well, the system is geared up to make them mercenary. The system is geared up to not make them loyal, but hopefully you'll always find managers with integrity that would just want to do well and have the professionalism to do the best that they can. But we've seen this time and time again where managers or ex-players, let's say, for example, get into football management and they completely bomb. They make great pundits, or half-decent pundits, let's say, and sometimes even crap pundits. But what they just don't make great managers at all. They're not great communicators. They're not great motivators. They're not great managers. They're not great tacticians. They're great players, and especially when you're dealing with lower league players, it's sort of, the transition is hard for players to become managers as well. So, you know, getting into football management is a really hard task. Ralph, 1802, fans turn on players as fast as players want to go to a bigger club. I'd say that. Yeah, that's a fair comment. I think they turn on players, especially if they don't see the effort there. If they don't see effort, then they will tend to start turning on the players. I think fans stay very loyal to players, even in a run of poor performances, but if they see a lot of heart and desire. In fact, you get legends at a club, you get fan favourites at a club based purely on heart and desire and less about their performances or skill or how many goals they scored or whatever like that. A lot of it comes down to heart and desire and wanting to play for the badge and really taking, those players to their heart. And the same for managers as well. You get certain managers that you'll always think of very fondly, not only for what they did, but the way they were and especially the way they spoke to the fans. So let's just say, for example, Nuno Espirito Santo. I think on the whole, fans will, especially if he has some decent results in the next few games, or certainly for the rest of the season, if he can stabilise the team, the club, buy a couple of decent players, which he is directly responsible for, then I think the fans are going to have a lot of time for him, not purely based upon the league position that we find ourselves in or the performances and the results, but just his manner and the way he talks, especially at press conferences, and the things that he says. And what I particularly liked about managers get very criticised a lot when they go into a new club and they say all these great things, right? But very few deliver. In fact, most fail to deliver on their promises or on what their aspirations are, their expectations are. But Nuno came across very well for me because he was like talking about pots and talking about different performances, and he said, look, this is only one game, this is the first step, and he was trying to keep everybody grounded and trying to keep everybody just very sensible about it and say, look, everybody just take a step back and just think about where we are, what we're doing. We've got a long way to go, and I say I'm convinced he's gone in there and he's thinking, wow, I did not expect it to be this bad. I did not expect the players to be like this. Absolutely convinced of it. I have no evidence to support that claim, but absolutely convinced of it. That's what he was feeling. And I don't know if those games against Brentford and Leeds were protests, quiet protests by Nuno, but it certainly felt like it. And if the problem is if a manager succumbs to that and does that, that's probably one of the worst things he can do. Not only in terms of his own professionalism, but also in terms of the eyes of the fans and the club. Because you should never do that. You should never sacrifice anything just to prove a point. I don't want to believe it, but it certainly did look like that to me, to Nuno. Listen, let us know your thoughts in the comments below afterwards. It's been going on for 50-odd minutes here about, whatever manager, is at your club, do you have faith in them? Do you, what is it? Is it just based on the performances? Is it based on the tactics, the starting 11? Is it about the timely substitutions, if they make any substitutions? I say, is it results, performances, or is it just the way he talks, the things that he says, post-match analysis, press conferences, that kind of thing? Is that's what warms you to him? Because that goes a long way. That definitely goes a long way. But for me, the biggest criteria is that any manager should be able to go to any club and work with any players that he's got there and then. And of course, in transfer windows, he can bring in extra players or players that he likes, he feels he can work with to improve the team, shape the team, move it in different direction. But he's got to be able to work with the players. And we've got to see changes in that team, in that starting 11 or on the bench, that starts to see an improvement or starts to see the way that your new manager, wants to play. But there we go. Robinson 541 just got in. Weather is foul in Norfolk. Yes, it's foul here. Actually starting to clear away here. Not too bad. But yeah, it's been terrible all day, hasn't it? Absolutely horrible. But listen, thanks for joining. I say, if you've just joined in late, go start watching from the very beginning. But I thought I'd just talk about managers today. Obviously, a heavy emphasis on Nuno Espirito Santo as well. I still think the jury's out on him. I think he's still I think he would admit there's a long way to go yet, and a lot of the success that we hope he has is going to be based on keeping the players fit, keeping them players performing, trying to get the players like Bowen and Paqueta and Somerville trying to perform with consistency, trying to keep Callum Wilson fit if he's able to start. I note that Fulkrug was in training at Rush Green, so you never know, he could be back for Bournemouth as well. I'd love to see Callum Marshall in there. I'd love to see the youth on the subs bench. I think you can bring the youth on as opposed to having the likes of Irving and Rodriguez on there, because if we're not going to play them, we don't fancy them at all, then don't do it. I mean, another player that is appearing to be impressing in training is Igor. So let's just see how that goes. That's, whether there's a change coming in the defensive pairing of Kilman and Todibo. Albeit they had a decent performance the last time out. Todibo more than Kilman. Kilman was still wanting, of course, in certain regards. But this is what the manager's got to do. This is what they're paid for. Nuno, what is he on? I don't even know what he's on. Is he on 5-6 million a year? I don't even know what he's on. This is what they're getting paid for. They're getting paid the big money, and we can only just sit by and critique them on their performance. As I said right at the start of the live show, we can only critique them whilst comparing them to other elites, right? I'm not going to critique him, if he comes up against me. I'm not going to critique any elite player who's playing a Sunday League player, right? You can't do that. It's and we talk about levels in different sports. All sports have different levels to it. I love my boxing, as you know, on this channel as well. I love my boxing, some great weekend of boxing. There's always levels to this. But you critique a fight based upon who he's matched up with, right? And that's the in boxing, you want to see great challenges. You want to see 50-50 fights. So if one fighter is just stupidly levels above another fighter, it doesn't make for a great fight. In fact, it makes a bit of a nonsense fight. In fact, it makes it dangerous, right? So this is what we're seeing with Anthony Joshua being potentially going up against Jake Paul, right, in December. It's a nonsense. It's a disgrace, really. But you judge athletes and sports persons, people, at whatever level they're at. And that's how they compete. And that's the beauty, the art of competition, isn't it? There we go. I believe he could be a good manager. You can't make a silk purse over sales. Well, yeah, as I say, there is I believe there's a lot of problems in the squad. I think we've got to rid of a lot of players and bring in some new. Marshall was playing for Northern Ireland tonight. They were 1-0 down last I saw. Northern Ireland. Sorry, they were losing 1-0. Yeah, they lost 1-0. Slovakia. So yeah, unfortunate. Germany won, and Walter Marder scored 2 goals for Germany. There you go. If you're a Newcastle fan, you're going to be very happy about that. As I say, Newcastle, Eddie Howe has been under pressure the last couple of weeks, especially from Newcastle fans, again, for making strange decisions, strange in-game decisions, and not exposing the weaknesses of other teams. And this is when you start to question. You say, well, he can't be a bad manager. So what's going on? He's proven to be a great manager. So what's going on? Yeah. This is a decent result here. Look at that. Malta beat Finland tonight, 1-0 away. Poland 1-1 against Netherlands. Croatia 3-1 against Faroe Islands. Didn't the Faroe Islands beat a big team, like last week or the week before? Who was that then they beat? Whoever it was quite a decent scalp that they got. Japan beat Ghana 2-0. And there's some friendlies. South Korea beat Bolivia 2-0. Argentina beat Angola 2-0. Martinez and Messi got those goals. Saudi Arabia beat Ivory Coast 1-0. Tunisia beating Jordan 3-2. I mean, this is another, we're talking about internationals right now here. They're managers that, that specialise in international football. I just think it's a very strange occupation because the pressure is so intense just for a very short period, isn't it? And most of the time you're just going around scouting players and God knows whatever. So it's a bit of an easy job, but at the same time it's the whole weight of the nation is on you at those given moments, isn't it? I mean, let us know what you think of Thomas Tuchel in terms of how they're doing for England. I wasn't mad with Thomas Tuchel. In fact, I predicted it that he'd make some changes. He'd want to experiment with different players, put different players in, because you've already qualified. So why not? And I think he's gradually got better and better and starting to work with this team. I think England are a very, very good prospect to win the World Cup. I really do. And it pains me to say that because, I'm an Italian supporter. But Italy won last night, beating Moldova very late on, getting 2 goals. God, they left it too late. But Norway had already beaten Estonia, I think it was 4-1. Haaland scoring again. So they already qualified. Italy play Norway on Sunday. I don't know what let me have a look at the goal differences. I don't think it's even possible to Group I. So Italy. Oh, okay. The goal difference. So check this out. Norway have got a plus 29 goal difference. Italy have got a plus 12 goal difference. I mean, it's just, that is just, it's just ridiculous. That is a 17 goal difference between the two. So Italy would have to beat Norway 18-0 to get to the top. Obviously, that's not going to happen. So Norway are going to the World Cup. Italy are going to have to go in those playoffs in January. But there we go. Potter. Yeah, for Sweden. God, I totally forgot about Sweden. Yeah, because they were playing last night, weren't they? I think they were playing against... no, was it last night? No, it was tomorrow night. Sorry, tomorrow, isn't it? They're Sweden. Yeah, they're good game, actually. Switzerland, away to Switzerland. Sweden are in Group B. They're bottom of the table. Yeah, so they're not going to the World Cup either. Yeah, so this is Potter's first game. So obviously his next cracker is really going to be at the Euros in a couple of years' time. That's what he's going to be looking at. But there we go. Anyway, listen, it's coming up on an hour. I think you've had enough of me. It's been great doing the live show. Thanks for joining late on, guys. Just watch from the start and let us know what you think in the comments below. But as I say, managers... I don't envy them, but at the same time, I still hold them to account. And it's purely on, the things that they say, the tactics that they have, the changes that they make, the in-game tactics, in-game management, because that's ultimately what they're paid for, right? They're paid for the starting 11s and, managing players, that kind of thing. And, whilst others may say, well, you judge a manager on the success of the transfers, well, that model has changed now, especially with directors of football now, or owners getting involved too readily with transfers, and some managers, some coaches not even knowing who they're going to manage from one transfer window to the next because it's out of their hands. But I don't believe that should ever be the case. I think the manager should always be completely consulted and said, okay, would this player suit your needs, as it were? But you've always got to hold them to account. But I think it's less, for me, it's less about the transfers now, blaming the manager. It's more about what the manager does with the group of players that he's got at his disposal. Can he improve them? Can he make them better than what they were before? even slightly, if it's even just the slightest little bit, can he introduce fight? Can he make them more energetic? Can he, change the tactics? Can he make them play with a common identity? That's what I judge them on. That's what I judge a manager on. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like what I do, keep on watching. And hey, let us know what you think of the chants right at the start of the videos. I had a bit of fun with that the other day, so I thought I'd let that. Let me just play it for you once, just as a little outro. But all I can say is thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. And catch you again on another live show or another video coming very soon. Bye now.
He talks a good game, he talks a good game, on the Edson, he talks a good game. He talks a good game, he talks a good game, on the Edson, he talks a good game.